Hello, everybody. Sorry for the lack of coming soon screen and all of that, but was a little bit busy cooking dinner and everything, so I didn't get around to it. For those of you who don't know, I've also been sick for the last few days. Quite sick, actually. Not going into work or anything, so here we are now, and just hearing noises downstairs, wondering if it's like my dog's doing something they shouldn't be or what up. So I'm just kind of vamping for a minute, waiting to see if anyone is going to show up. If not, that's fine. I understand. I was holding up, being really late. Oh, I do hear noise downstairs and just sneezing because my house is sick because I infected everybody. Got him. All right. So, welcome to Horsehead Weekly. This is the week number 7 update. We are now at about the halfway point of the regular season. As there are 13 weeks, it's really hard to say what the halfway point is, but for now, we'll consider this the first half of the halfway point. Next week, I'll do a half-year review. Huge big thing and all that, like I do every single year. But for now, let's just look ahead one little week. Cutting out a lot of the nonsense this week because as I said, I've been sick. Haven't had a lot of time to really sit down and bang out what I need to get done. So let's just get started. And gotta go fast as always because got a lot to get to. Even though it's not as much as normal, still gotta get to it. So we're gonna start off with last week, and last week we had quite the battle. We had 174.3 points lose, which I think might be the front runner right now for the Bad Luck Brian Award, which is the person who puts up the most points in a loss. And that's looking like it's going to be Doug right now, because that is a lot of points to put up in a loss. Although, I could be wrong. Somebody else might have done it so far. So, congratulations to Matty M surviving that, putting up almost 180 yourself. Good on you, man. You move up to 5-1 on the year. But backing all the way up, gonna go to one of his one of the other people in the league, myself and Malcolm. The two of us sat down, and a lot of people were saying, well, Maxime, blah blah. Maxime's had a couple of bad weeks, and Maxime continues to have bad weeks. He put up a sub 100 showing, which is the first such thing in the league this year. The closest we've come so far is 100.9, which was really spooky scary by James last week, but not to be outdone by his division rival. Malcolm goes out and lays an egg, not even breaking 100 points. So sorry about that, Malcolm, and also sorry to myself because I wasted 167.5 points on you. Anyways, moving on, we have Matt S., who thankfully vanquished Jerry, allowing me to move back into a three-way tie. As you saw earlier, Doug ended up losing as well. So, division all locked up at 3 games won, 3 games lost, with the division tiebreakers, of course, going to everybody else who wasn't me, because I dropped my first 2 games of the season to my division opponents. Moving on, we have Dave still searching for his first win, as is Gabe, both of them falling to Nick and Steve respectively. Both of them put up low number points, below average, and by at least 10 points. So neither of them put up a good showing, and both of them lost people who put up over average, so nothing really to talk about there. The better teams just happened to pull it out and win. And finally, this was a really cool story. It was a team that started off 0-3 and then 1-2, a team that started off 3-0 and then lost 2. What were they going to do this week? And apparently these two teams are linked in their souls to the Miami Dolphins, because they both managed to, for some reason, put up wins and losses in the same pattern as the Dolphins have so far. It's just kind of funny. They're just kind of have this weird link with each other, as well as they've been mirror images of each other all season. So Mike falls to 2-4, where James moves to 4-2, despite James just barely cracking average for this week. So moving on from that, we go to the standings, and as I said before, Skullhouse, my division, everyone is currently locked up at 3 wins apiece. Over at Kathy's Kids, again, they continue to dominate. making the insiders and outsiders regretting maybe making it so that it's like one of the conferences in the NFL where you can have all three teams go to the playoffs. It's completely reasonable. If they're just the three best teams in the league, then all three are going to go. And that's what it's looking like for Kathy's kids still, with all of them being at 4-2 at least, and Matt sitting atop at 5-1. Speaking of Matt, sitting atop the outsiders is the other Matt at 5-1, but he, unlike the other one, doesn't have a lot of competition in his division, and maybe very soon looking to clinch a playoff berth, potentially by maybe week 9. He could even have it if he things break the right way for him, and break the wrong way for Mike. Poor Matt, poor Mike, just having a bad time. And then finally for the insiders, it is still fairly close with eventually Le'Veon Bell coming back for Nick, who sits at 4-2, and right behind him is Steve, who started off incredibly hot and then has since switched from the fire to the ice side of his name and is now 3-3. But those are all really kind of icky. Let's see what it looks like for the playoffs. And for the playoffs, we have the Mats sitting atop as they are the two 5-1 teams. Both of them are, sitting right now looking to get a bye, both looking to win their divisions, and both having an advantage in that. For the divisional leaders, other than those two, we have Nick and Doug. Doug, by virtue of his 2-0 record inside the division, meaning he has tiebreakers over myself and Jerry, and with his other win coming up against Malcolm. So that is where he currently sits at 3-3. The two wild card spots, the other two playoff spots, of course, are going to Malcolm and James, the two leaders in that race by a full game over three other teams who are 3-3. Jerry, Steve, and myself. Those tiebreakers are definitely able to shift. I don't believe that Steve has played Jerry or myself yet this season. So all he needs to do is lose some games there, and then one of us can move up, but we'll see what goes on there. And then at number 10, we find Mike, who is only has 2 wins on the season, and they are against the number 11 and number 12 team, who have yet to win a game at all this season. So not really a good look there, Mike, but hey, that's just seems to be what your team is doing this season. So yeah, he is at 2-4, and then as I mentioned, Dave and Gabe still looking for their first wins of the season, and Gabe looking for his first win of the year. And just a reminder again to these teams, there is still money to be played for. You can get half of your money back simply by winning the Fight 50 at the end of the season. So don't forget to do waivers, don't forget to do trades, and setting your lineup and doing everything you can to try to push yourself forward, because really, if you can be a terrible, terrible team for 13 weeks, but if you can pull it together in week 14 to qualify for that Fight 50, you can win those, that $50 back. So don't give up, don't surrender, don't trade away people dumb. Maybe just start looking for people who have really good playoff matchups. Those week 14, 15, and 16 matchups. See somebody who has really good stuff there. Maybe you might want to overpay for them a little bit. Don't go crazy with it. We want this to be fair, but maybe start looking in that direction. But that is it for the standings, which means, of course, we now have to move on to the Eliminator. Yes, and we have 2 new victims to the Eliminator. In what has been a very interesting Eliminator so far, with 2 teams going out right away. Jerry then taking 3 straight strikes, and Malcolm and James each taking 3 straight strikes. So, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting the way it's been going with, teams just losing 3 strikes right away. So, but as I was saying, 2 teams did get eliminated, and it is Malcolm and James. They are both at 4-2. They are both in the playoffs at this moment, and yet neither of them will be qualifying to advance in the Eliminator down to the 3-strike phase. So for those of you who don't know, now that we have less than 9 people alive in the Eliminator, we will be reducing the strikes from 4 every week down to 3, which means it is possible next week that we could lose both Matt M., Steve, and Mike, and just bang, 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 1, 2, 3, they're all out. And that would be kind of rough, because then it would be just down to the final 4 with 2 strikes going until one guy's out, and then down to 2 and 3 which is only 1 strike. So this week, we had the first strike given out to somebody who was over average, which is, just going to show that you can't just be average anymore even. You have to be above average. You have to really be putting in a really good showing, or else you're just going to fall apart and be eliminated. So what we have right now is, we have 7 teams left. 3 strikes will be given out next week, which means you have to finish in the top 4 in the league to be guaranteed to not get a strike, which is going to be tough. So we'll see what happens here. And it is also interesting to note that the 2 highest average teams in the league are Matt M. and Steve, and both of them are currently sitting with 2 strikes, whereas some of the lower averages in the league, such as myself, are sitting with 1 strike, and Matt S. is sitting with 0 strikes. So what's coming up for next week? Well, next week we have myself playing against James, which should be a very intense matchup, as both teams, I believe, will be scoring a lot of points. There's not a lot of people on bye for these 2 teams. He has Juju, and I have the Green Bay running backs, which everyone knows are great and should be trading for. So honestly, I think this is going to be a really intense matchup. So best of luck to both teams. Over next to them, we have the number 1 in the league, Matt Salway, facing up against the last team in the league, Dave. That's just kind of rough for Dave. But if you look at the projected totals from ESPN, it's not that bad. It's less than 10 points. I've seen bigger disparities work themselves out, so good luck to both combatants there. And then you have Doug and Nick playing. That's just kind of an even matchup, as well as Steve and Malcolm, both of which are teams that are kind of looking to get themselves moving in a better direction, as they have 5 strikes between them over the last 3 weeks. So best luck to those 2 doing something good. Mike looks to right the ship and finally begin to put wins together, as he runs into Matty M, who is, as I said with Matt Salway, very, very good. So best of luck to Matt M. I mean, he's going to have to fight against a really talented team that doesn't put up the numbers in Mike. And then finally, we have Jerry playing up against Gabe, who is looking for his first win. And this could definitely be that week, depending on, how the injuries break for Jerry and Tyler. So that's this week, and which brings us to the sponsor. Just imagine there's a picture of, like Shrek or something on here. And, so what we have for this week is Feelins, Feelins, Dealins, and Healins with Peelins. Are you a giant green swamp dweller who explores your inner strife via onion metaphors that would like to process said strife to a resolution with a receiver from the land of 1,000 lakes? Well, then this is perfect for you. Just call Thielins, Feelins, Dealins, and Healins with Peelins. We also help with Princess Dealins, which might also help the same audience. Like, there's an overlap there as to who does those things. And now, with the sponsorship out of the way, we can finally move on to the rankings, and it's the I'm Sick Deal With It edition. So everything's going to be related to me. That wasn't planned. That worked out wonderfully. I'm going to take some water now. Feels a little better. So now we're going to move on to the rankings. And as I said, it's the I'm Sick Deal With It edition. And just for some notes, I have included now the last 3 weeks' averages, so you'll be able to see, this is how many points they put up per game over the last 3 weeks, because I feel like that's a decent indicator as to where they are now. And also be noting, like, are they trending up, or are they trending down, because they might have a low average, but they put up, really good weeks. Week 5 and 6 has had a real bad dud in week 4 or something like that. So I'll get into that a little bit deeper. But just of notes, the first and second place teams in the last 3 weeks averages, they're way ahead of everybody else. 3rd through 7 is all really clumped together, and then it goes 7, big gap to 8, big gap to 9 through 11, which are all very, very close together, and then 12th is again falling way behind everybody else there. So let's move on and get to C-Class, me coughing up phlegm, because that was just disgusting. I hate it. Oh, it's the worst. It's the absolute worst. So, starting off with number 12 and the absolute worst, it's going to Gabe's. I thought your team was going to turn it around. I thought your team was going to, start to spike. It was going to start to do great things. I was really hyped for it. I mean, you have David Johnson who's starting to play decently, Eckler, Landry, Green, and Joku starting to get a lot of looks in the red zone. I mean, your defense I thought was coming together. I thought you had it, man. I thought this was going to be it. You're gonna finally break free like a butterfly stuck inside of a crystallis, whatever the word is for it. My brain is swimming in things. Yeah, I thought this was gonna be your week last week, and then you went and put up about what you've been averaging the last 3 weeks. You put up 126. So if nothing else, you're very consistent. You have been within 5 points of yourself over the last 3 weeks, so that's good. But being at 124, that's not exactly where you want to be when the league is averaging around 140. So I'm sorry, Gabes, but I gotta put you down at number 12. Yeah, maybe. Geez, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, man. You got talent on your team. It's just not really doing it for you right now. So good luck. Maybe you got to make some moves. Before I don't know. I don't know, man. Just good luck to you. Moving up to number 11, we have Dave. Dave is the other one down in this in the basement dwellers. He does move up for number 12 from last week by virtue of the fact that he put up a respectable game in week number 4. And so unlike Gabe, he actually has shown that his team can do good. He can put up over 150 points. He can actually be above average, something that Gabe has never been. But at the same time, was that just because Adrian Peterson spiked really hard? Is it just because a couple of people went off in the same week? Because looking up and down your team, yeah, you have Cooper Kupp, who you traded for, assuming he was going to be good before he became week to week. Naeem Hines is no longer really a thing with Marlon Mack allegedly doing what he's doing. Ryan Grant is good, but if he's going to be hurt, then that doesn't really help you. Jordan Reed's fallen back to earth. I mean, other people are saying Ebron's going to do the same thing. He's going to regress as soon as Doyle gets back because they're going to be splitting the tight end shares in the passing game. So I don't know, man. You got a good team. In the numbers sometimes, but I feel like you're just. I like Gabe's team on paper better, but your team actually put up numbers that back it up. So I don't know. Maybe you have to do the same thing he's doing. Try to sell Kupp for something to try to win now. Maybe try to move Reed. I don't know what you want to do, but you got to make something happen here now. And speaking of teams that need to make something happen, it's Jerry. I'm not entirely sure what you're doing with your team at the moment. I think it's just because you're between waivers, so you're trying to move people around as you're looking at Jimmy Graham's on bye, so you're trying to figure out what tight end you want as you're moving people in and out of the lineup. You have Blake Bortles still in your lineup, which is weird considering Drew Brees is playing and you don't have another defensive player on your roster at all. So I'm not really going to look into it too much. But the reason I have you down here in 10th isn't because of lack of talent. Again, you have Devontae Adams and Jimmy Graham and Doug Baldwin and Drew Brees and Cook and Fournette and blah, 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 blah. I can go on. But because you aren't putting it together, I'm not seeing it out of you in any given week. I mean, let's look at your numbers. You have yet to break average. That is not a good thing. And I don't know if it's the fact that your talent is just not doing it yet and it's going to blow up later on. You're going to have this spectacular team for the stretch run. And sitting at 3-3 is great considering if that's what happens. If all these players break out in the second half, then my God, your team's going to be insane. But at the same time, your team is right now just kind of, below average. It's not doing anything. So I'm just going to keep you down here for now just because, like Gabe's team, I think you have the talent. It's just not doing anything yet. And speaking of that, that's what you have. You have talent in your GM room with Tyler. You're just not getting anything out of it yet. Because, between you two, I'm sure you guys could put on a great show with, your trades and your waiver deals and all that type of stuff. But for now, Jerry, you're stuck down here at number 10 in the basement. Uh, and those are your bottom three. Before we get to the B class, which is me not being able to breathe. And it's not because of normally, like when I'm doing the show and I can't breathe because I'm trying to talk continuously. And my buddy's like, hey, dude, you need to breathe in to make noise. So hold on one second. So yeah, so that's been a fun thing for a couple days. And I'm back. Cool. That was fun. Oh no, I don't want to open Steam. Steam, go away. I just wanted to make sure my voice was still going out to the internet. All right. Um. So at number 9 we have Malcolm. Malcolm's at number 9. Um, because he probably should be down with that lower 3. His team has not been very good. The last 3 weeks, he's put up 130, 109, and 91. So he's definitely trending in the wrong direction. Um, I mean, he started at 165, 150, 153, 130, 109, 91. He's sliding in the wrong direction, and now that could have just been because of buys hitting him. So all of his best players are, off of buys now. Maybe it's because he just made some bad deals. I don't know what's going on. But what I do know is he has a roster that I'm not a huge fan of anymore. I don't know if he panicked or what it was. Maybe he saw that he hadn't put up an above average week in 3 weeks. So he went from one of the top guys to just 3 strikes, you're out. But, Carlos Hyde is fine when the Cleveland's competitive, but if Cleveland falls behind, then I feel like that's just not the guy you want anymore. You're starting Marlon Mack, who, yeah, he put up 11 points last week, and he can be fine, but, he always getting hurt. You're trusting Antonio Callaway, who's the new Flash. I mean, there's really only 2 good people in your lineup, and it's the 2 Kansas City guys, and they haven't had their bye yet. So when that week comes, basically you're just punting that week away. I don't know, man. I'm just not a huge fan of your team. I don't like what you're doing with it. I feel like I probably liked it more a couple weeks ago, and then I don't know if it was trades or what, or injuries or what happened to you, but you put up 3 really miserable weeks the last 3 weeks, and it's brought your average way down. You're below average for the season. Your last 3 weeks is 13 points below the next lowest team at 124. So even worse than that. So yeah, I don't know, man. You just got to get your shit together. You're just not doing a good job right now. You're stuck down in the basement. So I don't know, man. Best of luck to you. Oh my god, I just realized you have Austin Hooper in your flex. Are you banking that hard on not Amari Cooper, Julio Jones just not getting targets in the red zone, and Hooper just gonna eat them all up with Sanu and Ridley out? I mean, that's some disrespect you didn't throw my way that you didn't even probably intend. But good on you. I like it. That's pretty cool. So yeah, that's it, Malcolm. I don't know what to tell you, man. Gotta hope that some of these guys turn their lives around or something, because right now you're stuck near the bottom and you're sliding fast still. Speaking of near the bottom and sliding fast, James and Malcolm, I believe I had as like 2 of my top guys 2 weeks ago. Coming into week 4, I both liked them a lot. I both thought they had great teams. They were doing great stuff. And then they went 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. So here are James at number 8. He is currently 10th in the last 3 week rankings. Last week he was 6th, so he falls down to 8 now. And he's, last 3 weeks, let's see what he got. He got 129, 101, and then he put up 142, which is why, he's holding up a little bit higher than I have him ahead of Malcolm. And the fact he has people like, who are actually good at football. He's got Juju. He's got Tyreek Hill. He's got Jared Goff, Alvin Kamara, Alshon Jeffrey. If Crabtree is going to be the guy now in Baltimore and take over from Brown, I guess, sure. His defense is, full of really talented players. He's got a 2, 1, and 5 on there. And Trevathan is, he had his bye already, so that 33 is definitely underinflated, considering he's putting up, 12.1 points per game. I think that's actually, he's probably up in that top 10 range. So you got a lot of really good players on your team. Your problem at the moment, though, is again, like some of the other people that keep saying, "Oh, you got the talent, it's just not happening." You got talent, it's not happening. You haven't seen above average since the first 2 weeks. In those first 2 weeks, you averaged 190 points. So I don't know if you just like put all of your points in the first 2 weeks and now you're falling apart, or you know what's happening. But you got the talent. I want to see you continue to be good. I want to see James rebound and return to form and be that beast that he was earlier in the season. Because I like what your team has. I like a lot of what you're doing here. You're starting Kiko Alonso. That's something that I thought was a really bad move when it first happened. But then apparently Kiko Alonso decided he wanted to make a billion tackles a game, which is great for me. I love that as a Miami fan. So keep up the good work on your team when it comes to the talent, and hopefully it'll turn itself around. Basically, I've said that. So for the teams I've talked about so far, Malcolm, I said, you only got a couple talented guys. You're looking kind of rough. For Jerry, I said I like the talent. Dave, you're looking kind of rough. And for Gabe, I like the talent. So that's basically been every other team so far. It's been either like the team or I don't like the team. But these bottom 8 guys, or the bottom 5 guys, bottom 5 guys, yeah. They've all been working hard, and they've got, half of them got good teams. They just haven't made it work so far. So, best of luck to those bottom group guys. And now we get to the A class, which is gigantic. It's 7 through 3. It's absolutely huge. And we're going to start off with Doug. And I just want to preface this by saying, you could probably take 7 through 3, mix them up, draw names out of a hat. You could probably make an argument for that order. I feel like the top 2 is very clear. The bottom 3, and then those next 2, you can maybe mess around with those bottom 5 and try to figure out, these guys are a different tier, blah, blah, blah. But, I think the top 2 and the bottom 5 are definitely where they are, and this bottom chunk of 5 is also definitely where they need to be. And I got to start somewhere, so I'm going to start with you, Doug. Doug is finally above average again. His first week he was above average. He then went below, and then back above. Too bad he did that in what amounted to a loss, which is rough for him to be that guy who had a big week and then just ran somewhere with a bigger week. But hey, you can't always be the biggest week of the pool, man. That's just how it works. Which definitely inflates his last 3 up to 4th. Without that week, he was looking down in like the 130s. Definitely near the bottom territory. He was going to start, I was ready to just knock him down even further. But then I started looking at his team, started falling in love with this team, started being like, man, this is actually a really good team. And then as I continue to look at his bench, he's got Chris Carson, and he's got Aaron Rodgers on the bench. He's got Demaryius Thomas, who, if you can pick the right matchups, he could probably be a really good guy. Devin Funches, who's, if you can pick the matchups can be a really good guy. And those guys can rotate to that flex with Terry Cohen, as Sony Michel and Zeke, Cooks, and Allen have all been absolutely studly the last few weeks. And I feel like this is a team that's going to do some really good stuff. It's going to look a lot better in the coming weeks. I think 7 is where you're going to continue your rise from, because last week had you down 9. And I think you're just going to start shooting up as long as your team continues to put up points. And I'm going to try to remember to go easy on you for next week if you do end up stumbling a little bit and only putting up around average, because I really do think you have a much better team because you got a lot of talent, you got a lot of good players, and the difference between you and those bottom 5 teams, or at least 3 of those bottom 5 teams, is that you did good. You actually put up a good solid week and dug yourself out of that below average cave that you've been dwelling in for the last 5 weeks. So good job, Doug. You're doing good things, and you're going to be moving on up in the world. Which brings me to Matt S. I have no idea really what I want to do with Matt S. because he has a knack for being slightly above average every single week. He's so good at it. He's had 2 weeks where he was below average. 1 week it was literally by 0.1 points he was below average. So that really count as being exactly average. And then 4 weeks where he was above average, and those weeks was like 3 points above average, 2 points above average, 3 points above average. Like, the dude just has this knack for just sitting right on the edge, and I love it. But should I reward it by moving him up in the standings? Like, I had him last week up at 4 because I was like, he's being consistent, he's doing good stuff. Or do I want to shift him down? I don't know what I really want to do with him. So I moved him down to 6, and I don't really like that. I think I'm underestimating the change that his team is going to have once Mark Ingram really comes out and starts killing it. Because I think that's what's going to happen. He benched Jordan Howard, which was, I think, a very smart move. He's got Robert Woods, who is going to absolutely pop with Cup on the bench. With Freeman no longer in the pitcher, taking, wiggling around in the minds of people out in Arizona, I think that's definitely, or not in Arizona, in Atlanta, rather. I think it's going to let Coleman really maybe begin to open up and show himself a little bit better. As this is an audition for Coleman, he is on a contract here. This is his audition for, getting a big league, millions and millions of dollars next year, because Atlanta's not going to tag him with Freeman. So, I think you have a really, really solid team. And I think with Ingram coming in, if he can just start racking up those 20-point games, like he did last year, I think you're really going to see this team flourish, and it'll be an extra 10 to 15 points, which puts him, again, if you look at how he's been average without Mark Ingram. That puts him at 10, 15 points above average moving forward, which, that's good enough to be winning a lot of games, staying safe in the Eliminator, which he has yet to get a strike in because, as I said, he's been sitting right around average every week. And then he's just going to kind of, ramp up and coast off into victory because I feel like that's just what his team can do right now. He doesn't really have a spot that I look at and I go, oh, that's a scary spot on his team. He's got great defensive players. He's got a bunch of people he can rotate through flex. He's got Woods and Antonio Brown. In case you miss him on the bench, Antonio Brown's there. And he's got, James White, who's going to continue to be used the bunch and be great in New England, even with Michelle there. I just really like your team, Matt. I'm sorry. I just can't believe I'm putting you at 6, but, that's just kind of where I have to put you. So moving on up from that, we get to number 5, which is Steve. Steve slides down 2 spots for number 3. Steve is in another position, kind of like with Matt S., so I'm not going to repeat it all. But I like everyone on your team. I don't think you have a lot of big holes. I think you're doing really good. I just kind of had to move you down because, other people moved up. That's why you got moved down. It's not because you're consistent, because God knows you're not. You averaged 173 points per game over the first 3 weeks, and in the last 3 weeks you put up 142 with 128, 154, and then 143. So you're spiky too, which is good. That can be a good thing in the power rankings, but I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of what you got going on in that points department. But maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. Maybe I should be looking at it as you have a really solid team. You put up 170 points per game for 3 weeks. You had a bad week. Then you put up 154 points. That's a really respectable week in week 5. And then week 6, yeah, you stumbled a little bit, but you still put up 143. That's average on the season. And you were the guy who got the bump. You're one of the 2 guys who got bumped because of there being less players, not because you were below average for the Eliminator. So. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you have a really good team, and with Ryan, Gurley, and all them, I like what you got going on, and you just had to slide back to number 5 because I think there were 2 people who really went out and just showed that they deserve to be moved up. And the first one is Nick, and it hurts. It really does. I can't explain it. He had one. So his first week he puts up, I believe, the worst. Yeah, he was worst in the league week 1. Absolutely dead last in the league week 1. He then proceeds with what I can only describe as garbage rocket-esque team to proceed to not be below average for the rest of the season so far, to average the second highest points per game over the last 3, to be almost at 150 points per game, which is good for third for the entirety of the season. And if you cut off week 1, then he's like right up there contending for the top spot in the league for points per game, if not number 1 in the league for points per game. Like, I don't know how you're doing it with this garbage pile. And I can't explain it, but I have to reward it, because if you're going to continue to put up really good numbers every week and be around 160 for 3 weeks in a row, I got to throw you a bone and I got to move you up another tick. And maybe you should be in the top 2 discussion. Maybe you should be up in the S class. But for now, I just have to stick you at 4, because unlike the other couple teams I talked about where I'm like, man, these teams got a lot of talent and they're just not working out, or oh, these teams got a lot of talent and they're just, starting to ramp up, or they've had maybe a couple bad weeks. You had one bad week at the beginning of the season, and then since then you've just been doing something. I don't know. Maybe I need to give James Conner some credit. Maybe I have to give whoever else you're starting on a weekly basis some credit. I don't know. But good for you, Nick. That's all I have to say. I just can't explain it. Maybe you're just good at football. I don't know. And that brings us to number 3. Number 3 is my team. Yeah, okay, put your pitchforks away, guys. Put your pitchforks away. I think this is actually earned. I got 151 points over the last 3 weeks on average, and I think my team's really starting to do well. I think Kenyon Drake it might have a bounce back week, but if not, maybe I can get something out of Aaron Jones and Smallwood, rotate those 3 through. If Carrion doesn't end up becoming the big stud that he's supposed to be, Dante Foreman's coming back. I feel like I got enough going through the RB2 slot. And same thing with my flex, because I have also Godwin and Taylor Gabriel that I can rotate through there, as well as, all those other guys. So I really like my team right now. I really, really do. I have a Brown on it, for God's sake. I mean, that's saying something if I like my team and it's got a Brown on it. Love you, Malcolm. But yeah, so I'm just going to leave it at that. If you guys want to at me, go for it. You know how to get a hold of me. I just kind of like my team. I like what it's got going on, because I feel like I got 2 stud wide receivers, a stud running back. It's not as good as the top 2 teams, but I feel like it's definitely good enough to sit atop of this class and then stare up onto the mountaintop with the best 2 teams, which are, of course, the S-class teams. And when you're sick, you get to just sleep and eat soup all the time, and it's great. Soup, it's food you don't have to chew. Honestly, why isn't that the tagline for all the soup? Like, soup, food you don't have to chew. It's just, perfect. It's brilliant. Writes itself. And in the S-class, they actually play each other this week, which is insane, and I love it. So what I decided is, if you guys want it, you guys need to show it this week. Show me who deserves to be the number 1 team going into next week. The winner of this is the number 1 team in the power rankings next week. Just win. That's all you have to do, and you get the number 1 in the power rankings next week between these 2 teams. And number 2 gets number 2. That's how it goes. Unless you have like some disastrous week and a bunch of people get hurt or something, whatever. But the winner here, you get the number 1 in the power rankings next week, unless I have a really good week and I decide to just, toot my own horn a bunch. Who knows? We have Mike and Matt M. They're going at it this week. They have a laundry list of injuries on their teams, but as of right now, it's not looking like any major players are going to be sitting out, which is great for both of them. And both of them, they just have such great teams, both of them. They both are doing a lot of really good stuff with them. Their roster management, their trades, knowing who to hold on to, knowing who to trade away. Like LaShawn McCoy, I thought, well, he's dead in the water. Matt shouldn't be doing anything with him, except maybe cutting him, and then he ends up coming back, and he's put on a couple good shows the last couple weeks. I wouldn't have seen that coming. I would have probably cut his ass or shipped him away. But, hey, here we are, and this is the game of the week. This is the game of the season so far, and as it's Matt M., can he basically almost lock up a playoff spot this week with this win? Yeah, it's not a mathematical lock or anything, but he'll be so far ahead of his compatriots, and he'll have such a great team moving forward that I think it's really hard to say that he won't lock a playoff spot if he can get through this week against a tough opponent. And for Mike, it's about survival because being 2-5 is not a healthy place to be, especially in a league as competitive as this, with people sitting at 4-2 right now. If they both win, then suddenly 5-2 is the line to make the playoffs, and you're sitting at 2-5. That's not a good spot. So lots of pressure on Mike. Not as much on Matt M, but a huge reward if he can get it. So if you made me do it, 1B, aka 2, is Mike. He moves back from last week being the number 1. You know, he's got good people on his bench, which you couldn't see before, such as Royce Freeman and Crow, Bernard, Sanu, Goodwin. Like, he's got a lot of good stuff going on there, so that's great to see from him. And then over at Matt M, number 1A, aka number 1, he's just been putting up an insane amount of points over the last 3 weeks. He was been on the cutting block the last 3 weeks, and I don't know what it was. Maybe he just realized after week 3, man, I'm going to get eliminated. I really have to crank it up a notch. But he definitely did, and he is up to number 1A. And again, on his bench, he has great players as well. He's got Phillip Rivers and Will Fuller and JPP. They all got people who can make stuff happen. They're all looking really good, and so best of luck to those two in the game of the week, in the title match, basically for now. And I'm real curious to see how this is going to end up working out between those two, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And if I go back to here, as of right now, it looks like we will know by Sunday night. No, they got Landon Collins in there for the Monday night game. Okay, so they do have somebody going on Monday night, but we'll have a really good feeling after Sunday at 1 o'clock because I don't have a ton of late night teams players going. So yeah, best of luck to everybody there, and that's it for me. As I said, I'm not really feeling great. I can't believe I made a 51-minute freaking video out of this. I was supposed to be really quick. Shoot. All right. Well, anyways, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching, either here on Twitch or over on YouTube. You guys are great. You really make this fun to do every week. So, I'll give you more notes next week so you guys can jump and chat if you need to. So, but yeah, enjoy the game tonight, and I'll see you guys next week.